The word will end the war. Words will heal the wound. The word becomes a poisonous vaccine. It makes honey with oil. Can you manage to change people without offending them by not using a simple three-letter word? It's actually possible. This word we're talking about is but. Most people begin criticism with a sincere phrase of praise. But then he connects his sentences with a word like but into a sentence of criticism. For example, to change this habit of a child who does not want to work, we use a sentence like this: "We are proud of you for improving your grades this semester. But if you had studied more math, you could have done better." In this case, the child feels encouraged until he hears the word AMA. After the word AMA, he begins to doubt the sincerity of the first sentence. For him, this sentence is a camouflage phrase used to criticize his failure. Since this will increase the tension, we will not have achieved our goal of changing the child's study habits. We can get out of this dilemma by replacing the word but with the word and. Let's look at the same sentence again. "We are proud of you for raising your grades this semester, and if you continue to study in this way, you can improve your math grade next semester as a reward for your effort." In this case, that child will feel praised because criticism of his failure did not follow the sentence of praise. Indirectly, drawing one's attention to one's mistakes can do wonders and take away the pain of hurt in sensitive people who are directly criticized. So show people their mistakes by telling them indirectly. Is there someone at your school or workplace that you don't get along with? Or is it your spouse that you do not get along with and that you constantly have problems with? Maybe your mother, father, or child. Human relationships are difficult and humans are social creatures. It has to be because the other way around is loneliness, which can be a much more depressing and distressing situation. In today's age, it is not possible to be physically alone. Spiritually, however, loneliness is extreme. Besides our good relationships, we all have problems with those around us in some way or another. For some, this situation becomes almost unbearable, like a state of insanity, while others can tolerate it in their lives by keeping it to a minimum. When you buy a new device, the first thing you do is to look at the user manual. Don't let it break down, do something wrong and make it inoperable. Well, why don't we read the user's manual? One of these user guides is a book that I have benefited greatly from in my life. The Art of Winning Friends and Influencing People by Dale Carnegie. Some of us may have read this book. However, as recommended in the book, these techniques should be remembered periodically, because memory is disabled with 5-Nisian. So people forget. It is truly an amazing book and there are so many lessons to be learned from it. Therefore, if you want to lead a more confident life, influence, or persuade people, I recommend you to stay on the video. Because a few very simple yet effective techniques compiled from this magnificent book will be mentioned. Do you want to impress people and make your life more bearable? So let's dig a little deeper. If you want to collect honey, do not stick to the beehive. The internationally renowned psychologist B.F. Skinner has proven in his experiments that animals rewarded for good behavior learn more easily and faster than animals reprimanded for bad behavior. Scroll through the pages of history and you'll find thousands of examples that show that criticism doesn't work. Lincoln has a famous saying, "Do not judge, for you have not yet been judged." Confucius said, "Don't complain about the snow on someone else's roof when your own door is not clean," says. Or stick the needle to yourself, the sack to someone else. No matter how wrong people are, they never criticize or blame themselves. Criticism forces the other person to defend himself in order to prove himself right, so it is pointless. It is also dangerous because it hurts a person's value, dignity, and hurts their sense of being important. When communicating with humans, let's keep in mind that we are not dealing with rational creatures. We are trying to communicate with creatures who act emotionally, have prejudices, and are fond of dignity and pride. Instead of criticizing people, try to understand them. Understanding, tolerance, and kindness are much more helpful than criticism. Principle: do not criticize, condemn, and do not complain. Praise: there is only one way in the world to get people to do what you want. Have you ever thought about this? Yes, only one way. To awaken the desire to do the work in the other person. John Dewey Candivi, one of the famous philosophers of America, states that the most important impulse in human nature is the passion to be important. Psychologist Jess Lair, C.S. Lair, says, "Praise is like the sun that warms the heart. Without it, we cannot bloom and grow." Yet many of us can easily expose people to the cold wind of criticism, but we are reluctant to warm them with the warm sunlight of praise. History is full of miraculous events created by praise. We all want to be praised and appreciated, and we will do anything for that. But none of us likes flattery and flattery. The difference between praising and flattering someone is actually very simple. The first is sincere, the second is contrived. Honest praise is more successful than criticism and ridicule. You cannot change people by hurting them. Principle 2. Do not withhold honest and sincere praise. Praise even the smallest improvement. Be sincere in your likes and generous in your compliments. How to be a good speaker. To be a good speaker, pronounce words like this, pay attention to these accents, or read a lot of books will not be mentioned. As Dale Carnegie emphasizes in his book, in fact, being a good listener gives the other person the impression that you are a good speaker. So, if you want to be a good speaker, you have to be a careful listener. So how do we become good listeners? Many people talk rather than listen. Even when his mouth is silent, his mind continues to speak. Most people are actually talking to themselves. Instead of listening to the other person, he plans in his mind what the interlocutor will say when he is finished. Quiet your mind, just listen. Journalist Isaac F. Marco's son, who has interviewed hundreds of famous people, said, "Very important people told me that they prefer a good listener to a good speaker, but they said the ability to listen is rarer than many other traits." Says, to attract attention, show interest. Ask questions that the other person will be happy to answer. Encourage people to talk about themselves and their achievements. For example, if a person is interested in football, talking about golf and asking questions about golf will prevent the other person from being interested in you. Try to focus on the topics that the people you want to be interested in are interested in. Remember, the people you talk to are 100 times more interested in themselves, their wants and problems than they are in yours. A person's toothache is much more important to that person than an epidemic that killed millions of people in China. Remember this the next time you start talking to someone. Principle 3. Be a good listener. Talk about topics that the other person is interested in. Encourage other people to talk about themselves. The debate can't be won. When Theodore Roosevelt was at the White House, if 75% of what I did was right, I would have met most of my expectations, he said. If you're not sure that 55% of what you do is right, why point out other people's mistakes? You can tell someone they're wrong with a look, an emphasis, or an action as well as with words. But when you say that, do you think it will give you the right? It never will be. Because when you do, you will be attacking his mind, judgment, honor, and self-esteem, and inciting him to attack you in the same way. You can't make people change their minds. You can respond to them with Plato's or Immanuel Kant's logic, but you still cannot change their minds. You only hurt them. Never say, "I want to prove this to you." Don't start. This is negative because the phrase is synonymous with the words, "I am smarter than you." Now I will say a thing or two and you will realize that you were wrong in your thinking. This is a challenge. It makes the listener want to oppose and struggle even before you speak. No matter how soft you are, it's very hard to change people's minds. So why take things uphill? Why put obstacles in front of us? If you're going to prove something, don't tell anyone. Act so skillfully and cunningly that no one will understand it. Alexander Pope puts it this way: when teaching someone something, don't pretend to be teaching. Act assuming that the other person has forgotten, not that they do not know. Lord Chesterfield also said to his son, "Be wiser than other people if you can, but don't tell them that." If someone says something that you think is wrong, or even if you are sure that he or she is wrong, wouldn't it be better to start off like this? "Look, I think differently. I could be wrong. I have been wrong very often. But even if I am wrong, I will be happy to learn the truth. If you want, let's review the situation once again. If you admit that you are wrong, you will never be in a difficult situation. You cut off all arguments and encourage the other person to be honest and forthright. This makes him admit that he might be wrong too. There is only one way to get the best out of a discussion, and that is to avoid it. You cannot win the argument, because whether you win or lose, you have lost something. So why? Let's say you have won a victory over the other person and you have smashed their ideas to pieces like a rag, proving that his mind is not working. Then what? You will feel good for a while. Or the person next to you. You will humiliate him. His pride will be broken. He will resent you. Also remember, even if your ideas are proven wrong in an argument, people continue to defend the same thoughts. You can be right, you can really be right, but when it comes to changing someone else's mind, being right probably won't change anything. Opera tenor Jan Pierce said, "My wife and I made a deal a long time ago, and we kept it no matter how angry we were at each other. While one side cries, the other is silent, because when two people shout at the same time, there is no communication, there is only noise and bad vibrations." Principle 4. The only way to get the best out of a discussion is to avoid it. 5. People like you. Look at the book. Always make the other person feel important. William James, the most important principle in human nature is the desire to be admired, says. What you want others to do to you, do the same to them. You expect the people you associate with to approve of you. You want your true worth to be understood. It is important for you to feel that you are important in your own little world. What you want to hear is real praise, not cheap, phony flattery. You want your friends and colleagues to be sincere in admiration and generous in praise. In fact, we all want that. Sorry to bother you, please, if you don't mind, thank you. Words like these make it easier for you to adapt to the monotonous wheel of life. These words are an indication that you were well brought up. Almost everyone thinks they are an important person. Many people's lives would be changed if they were made to feel important. Principle 5, make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. 6. Socrates' secret. When talking to people, don't start by discussing things on which you disagree. Start by highlighting the points on which you agree and keep emphasizing them for a while. That you are striving for the same purpose. Point out that you differ in method, not in purpose. Have the other person say yes, yes at the beginning. Avoid answering no as much as possible. Professor. According to Harry Overstreet, answering no is a very difficult handicap to overcome. Once you say no, your personality and dignity prevent you from changing that answer. Even if you later feel that it is wrong to answer no, you have to think about your precious pride because you feel the need to stick to word of mouth. That's why it's so important for a person to start their words with a positive response. Socrates is one of the most well-known philosophers of all time. What method did Socrates use? Did he tell people they were wrong? No, that's not Socrates' style. He was very clever. His method is today called the Socratic method and is based on getting a yes, yes answer. Socrates would ask questions that would make the other person say yes and would get positive answers one after the other. So yes, leave the difficult question you want to answer for last. Ask at least 2 soft questions first, to which you will receive an answer of yes. It will be much easier for you to get a yes answer to your last critical question when you answer yes to the previous questions. Whenever you're going to tell someone they're wrong, remember Socrates and ask soft questions that will get you a yes, yes answer. The Chinese have a beautiful proverb that reflects the wisdom of the East: the slow way takes the road. Principle 6, yes. Yup, you said. 7. Admit your mistakes. If we know we're going to be scolded in some way, it's a good idea to blame ourselves without waiting for the other party to do it. Moreover, it is easier to make our own self-criticism than to listen to the criticism pouring out from foreign lips. By doing this, you change the feelings of the person who intends to be angry or brush you off and awaken a sense of compassion in them. Principle 7, if you're wrong, admit it right away. Bonus, making a good impact. The expression on a person's face is much more important than the clothes they wear. A psychologist at the University of Michigan, Professor James V. McConnell, explains his thoughts on the smile as follows. People who smile tend to teach better, live, sell, and raise happier children. Much more information is hidden in a smile than a scolding. This is why encouragement is a more effective teaching tool than punishment. Don't you feel like smiling? So what do you need to do? 2 things. Force yourself to smile first. If you are alone, you can whistle or hum a song. Act like you're already happy. This will lead you to be happy. As psychologist and philosopher William James explains, action is thought to follow emotion, but in reality, action and emotion occur simultaneously and by regulating the action that is under the direct control of the will. It is possible to indirectly affect emotions that are not under the control of the will. If you've lost your joy, the way to voluntarily rejoice is to act and talk as if you were already happy. Everyone in the world seeks happiness. There is only one way to find it: controlling thoughts. Happiness depends on internal conditions, not external conditions. Nothing is good or bad, says Shakespeare. Thoughts determine that. The source of everything is desire, and every sincere prayer is answered. Final principle, smile. Last sentence. This book, which contains the principles mentioned here and was published in 1937, is still valid and is a bedside book that should be in every library. In my opinion, as the author emphasizes, it is of great benefit to remember these principles from time to time, even every month. What are the things most people learn too late in life? Things you wish you had known earlier. How different would your life be? This video is a video you should watch so that you don't wish for a more awake, more aware, and happier life.